In this video, I want to show you what you can do with a humble text cell or markdown cell in a Jupyter notebook. Now, Jupyter notebooks are fantastic as research documents, but also in just making your notes or learning how to code. So in a markdown or text cell, you can put normal text. You can think of it as a little word processor. Now you get different Jupyter notebooks. You get it in your Google Drive. That'll be Colab. You'll get it as standalone Jupyter notebooks or Jupyter Lab that runs in your browser, or the way that I like to use it inside of Visual Studio Code. Now, not all the things that you can do with Markdown is available in all these versions of Jupyter notebooks. I'm going to show you the ones that you can use in Visual Studio Code. Now, markup, it is a kind of markup language. In other words, it's going to control the way that the text is displayed. But you can also use HTML. That's HTML, the language of web design inside of these notebooks. Now, let's take a look at what you can do with a Markdown cell or text cell in a Jupyter notebook. So I'm inside of Visual Studio Code. As you can see here in the folder that's open, I've got two files. It's markdown.ipynb. I've just called my file Markdown, kind of makes sense. And it's the ipynb extension, which makes this a Jupyter notebook. I've also got a PNG file. That's just an image file, and you can see that image right at the top. And we'll get going with that. Just to look down, you can see I've got a different color to my title here. And these are the things that we're going to discuss. Heading sizes, how to make your text bold and italic, strike through, highlights, block quotes, ordered list, unordered list, definition list, task lists, code, fence code blocks, links, emojis, superscript, subscript, footnotes, and horizontal rule. So the things that you can do all in text cells. You can see on the top right, I have not even selected a kernel, so there's no code here. It's just normal text cells. Now remember, to get a text cell, you just have to hover in between any one of these cells, and you can see, especially here in Visual Studio Code, I get generate code and Markdown. Somewhere else it might say text in another version of Jupyter Notebooks, but here it says Markdown, and so all these cells are just Markdown cells. So let's start with that first one. I'm going to double click it, and that opens that cell just for editing. And you can see this is how we do it. There you can see the name of this PNG file. That is going to be the name of the image. Now I don't have to put the address on my internal drive for this file, because this file lives inside of the same folder as this Markdown file. So I can just reference it directly. That goes inside of parentheses, which is preceded by this exclamation mark, open, close, those square brackets, and then just the name that you want to give to this image, and then the name of the file itself inside of parentheses. And then I've added this parameter inside of curly braces, and that says width equals 600 px. So by the way, I'm going to go through this very quickly, and I've already typed this because I don't want to waste your time, but please stop the video, pause the video, and just try these things for yourself. I'm going to do return shift enter, and now we can see it's 600 pixels wide, so I can control that size. There's other things that you control as well, by the way, but now we have this image inside of this text cell. That's great. Now look at this title cell of mine. It's Markdown Basics in Jupyter Notebooks, but it's in royal blue color. So how did I do that? Well, this is what I did. I'm using HTML tags, HTML hypertext markup language, and those are the tags that you would do web design in. So my first tag, and these tags, remember, they go inside of less than and greater than symbols. And the first one is H1, that says heading 1, that's the biggest font size. And for most of these tags, you have to have an opening tag and a closing tag. So right at the end is the closing tag, and that's /H1. That closes this H1 tag. Then I've got a span tag with a bunch of other things in there, but there's the tag. And then I've got a closing span tag. So you've got to enclose these things. I could not have said H1 and then, or close H1 and then close span. It's got to be, contained within itself. And so there is the words that I want, Markdown Basics and Jupyter Notebooks. But I've added some extra parameters to this span tag, and that says style equals, and then inside of quotation marks, I've got color, colon, and then there are a couple of colors that are named. Otherwise, you can use RGB color codes, but I've got color, colon, royal blue, and that's going to give me this royal blue color. The next one is a little block quote. We're going to get to block quotes a little bit later, so I'm just going to leave that one. So let's get to heading size. Heading size is just, controlled by hashtags. And you see you can get from a single hashtag all the way to 6 hashtags. That'd be the smallest sub. You can use that for subsection kind of thing. And here you can just see the sizes of the font. So this heading size, by the way, if I open that, you can see it's 2 hashtags. That would be the same sort of thing as if I had to do H2 and then close H2. If I were to do this, close H2, and I did not use those 2 hashtags, this will be the same thing. I'm going to get exactly the same thing. The nice thing about doing the hashtags though, let's do those again and close it. There we go. Is that I can get this closure button there. So I can collapse that section. So it's going to collapse until it sees 2 hashtags again. And so kind of that works. So there's the sizes. There's 3, 4, 5, and 6. So how did I get the hashtags to display? Let's have a quick look at that. I'm using an escape character. Now the backslash key, that is the escape key. It's going to say escape what you are supposed to do. And what these hashtags are supposed to do is to render the text in a different way. But if I use the escape character just in front of that, it escapes that functionality. And so that's just going to print to the screen. So these 3 hashtags here, those are going to do the job. It's going to do a certain font size. But this is just going to print to the screen because I'm using the escape character right in front. And you can see the same for 4, 5, and 6. And then just normal text. And so you can just see the difference in the font size. That, 6 is quite small and might be difficult to see even on YouTube. So there is the normal text size just to compare to these different kind of font sizes so that you can use these as titles and sections. So let's close this. By the way, you can see here the 2 little dots. That is going to be what we're going to do when we get to the unordered lists, but we might as well look at it now. So if I open that, I'm just using a little minus symbol and then a space, minus symbol and a space, but I do leave a blank line in between. That just helps, print out to the screen nicer. Otherwise, these 2 lines are too close to each other. So bold and italic font, that's very easy to do. If I use double underscores or double star symbols directly preceding and following a word or a sentence, it's going to do bold for me. So let's have a look at this. Once again, look at all my use of the escape characters. That means it's not going to do its job, the underscore there. It's actually just going to print those underscore to the screen. And the same here for the star symbols. I'm escaping each one of them. But here, I'm not escaping them. It's going to do its proper job, and that's to make whatever's inside of it, it's going to make that bold. So don't put spaces there. So don't have bold and then a space, or put a space there. That's not going to work. You need them right up next to the characters. The same is going to go for single underscore or single star symbols. That's going to give us italics, as we can see there. And so when I render this, you can see there's my bold and there's my italic text. And this is the way that you do it. See, these print to the screen because I use those escape characters. And so very simple to do bold and italic font. Strike through, just as easy. And that's going to be this double tilde symbol. Again, it's got to be right up against the words, and that's going to give you strike through. If we look at how I did that, again, I've got to escape every time. It escapes its functionality, but when I put the tilde, then the word, and then again, closing tilde, that is going to give me a strike through. Highlight does not work inside of Jupyter Notebooks here in Visual Studio Code, so I have to do something else. Now, again, let's open that up. That's what I have for highlight, and I'm going to use the mark HTML tag, and there's my closing mark right there. And that means whatever's in between that, that's going to be highlighted. Let me just execute that so you can see what that looks. And that's a bright yellow highlight. And just to show you how I got these to print to the screen, I'm not using escape characters this time. I'm putting it in these little tick marks. It's not single quotation marks. Those are tick marks. And what Jupyter Notebooks would do, it'll render that as if it's code, the text that you'd find in a code cell. It's not going to execute that code. It just looks like, it just renders it to the screen in that fashion. And if I do that here in this version of Jupyter Notebooks inside of Visual Studio Code, it's going to give it this gray background. Now, that's going to depend on the theme that you use inside of your Visual Studio Code. So just to let you know that if you were to do this in other versions of Jupyter Notebooks, you'll put 2 equal symbols preceding and directly following. That's going to give you the highlight, but that does not work here. Here you have to use the mark. There we go, mark, hashtag, and the tag, and then the closing mark tag there. Once again, I've got the minus and then a space, and that's just going to give me an unordered list or bulleted list. Block quotes is if you wanted to do what we did right up there where I put my name, and that is just like this. It's just a greater than symbol. And so if I open this, you can see I've just got greater than and then directly write this as a block quote. And if I do that, there we go. And now I can do multiple lines. And the way that I do this, I just keep on adding these greater than symbols, even though there's a blank line. Just keep on adding them, and that's going to give you multiple lines in this block quote. I can even have these nested block quotes. And the way that I would do that, I would just keep on adding in the same line more greater than symbols. And so you can play with these as long as you have these contiguous set of greater than symbols. And there you go, it's this nested block quote. You can do all sorts of things inside of these block quotes. So what I've done here, look, there's my contiguous set of greater than symbols, keeping it all sort of in line there. There we go. And then we do get the 2 minus symbols there and then a space. So that's going to give me an unordered list. And here I've put bold the 2 star symbols. Use the star symbols instead of the underscores. There's specific instances where the underscores are not going to work for you. So, stick to those star symbols. That usually works very well for the bold and the single ones for italics, of course. So lots of things you can do with block quotes. Then in the unordered list, we've seen a bunch of those. There we go. I've got the ordered list, I should say. Here I'm using an unordered list, so minus with a space. And I've got no blank line in between those. When I render them, see they're right on top of each other. There's not a lot of line spacing, good line spacing there. I don't like that. But anyway, we're here for the ordered list. So you can see 1, 2, and 3. And that's how it's done very easily. 1, and then a period or full stop, a space, and then you just carry on with whatever lines you want to use there. I'm putting blank lines in between just for the spacing. And now we can see 1, 2, 3. But you just have to watch out a little bit. Look at this, 10, 11, 12. But look what happens here. I started at 10, then I jumped to 18, and then I jumped to 14. What's going to happen is this version of the notebook is going to take the first one, 10, and it's just going to auto increment by 1, 10, 11, 12. Irrespective of the actual values that you put there. So that's just a little gotcha moment. It might catch you out, but it's simple. This is going to start at the first one and then just carry on irrespective of the actual numbers that you put in your ordered list. We've seen the unordered list. Let's close here. We've seen the unordered list, and that's just these little dots. And I can even create a little hierarchy there. So let's have a look at this. Now, just to let you know, if you can see here, you can use star symbols, you can use a minus symbol, or you can use a plus symbol. You can use any of those, but just stick to the same type in any cell. And I do like to leave these blank lines in between. And the hierarchy is just created by a couple of spaces. So I usually just hit the tab key. That gives me about 3 or 4 spaces there. And so you can see the hierarchy. The way that this is going to go is that you are going to get this bulleted list, but you are going to get these sort of sub lists if you just do that spacing, as long as you keep these all in line as well. So that's unordered lists, easy to do. Remember, you can use the star symbol or the minus symbol or the plus symbol, doesn't matter, just stick to the same one. The definition list, not something I often use, I just want to show you what it looks like. You see the first term and then there's sort of an indent and then you start getting these lines, or you can have more than one line, or you can have this sort of thing. Let's just see how that is done. It is done by writing your normal text and then the next line you'll put a colon and a space, and that's just going to create that list. So if I want to do 2 of them, I just keep on doing colon space, and this is called definitions. Let me show you this final one. I've done this one with HTML just to show you. I've got my open and closed definition list, the DL tag there. And then here I have my DT and closed DT and my another DT closed DT. But then the actual lines is double D, so DD and closed DD. And so take a look at that. You can pause the video and take a look at that. You can construct sort of any kind of definition list, but not something I use very often. This one is quite a bit of fun. See here, I've got these little boxes and then some of them are checked and some of them are not checked, but they're all part of an unordered list. And that's very easy to do. Look at that. So there's my minus symbols. Remember, I could also have just done star. Let me just show you. I could have done star and star and star. It's going to do exactly the same thing. But to get these, it's open, close, square brackets, and I either put an X in there or I put just a space in there. And that's going to render this sort of thing. See, the bullets are still there, even though I changed from minuses to star symbols. That's not going to change. But I do get these little check marks. I think that's quite cool. Code, we've seen the code before. You see how it's rendered differently. It's the gray background, but it's more about the type of font, and that is the same font as my code cells would use. And so if you want to explain some code that you want to use, just put it inside of these set of tick marks. It's as simple as that. But you can have more than just this inline. You can also have fenced code blocks. And the way that you're going to do that is to do triple tick marks. And you can also add some formatting information. So you can see here this is formatted in different colors. And it's Python code there, but it's not executing because this is a Markdown cell. On the right-hand side there, you can see a JSON. This is what I did. I said tick, 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 and then closing tick, tick, tick there. And then in between, I can put as much code as I want. But this is a Markdown cell, as you can see. So this code is not going to execute. And I'm just telling it that I want the JSON formatting of this. And if I put nothing, let me show you what would happen. This is what I would get. It's still code font, but it looks quite different. So just adding the JSON there just gives me a different rendering of this as if it is JavaScript object notation that we are using for the formatting. So that's quite nice. If you want to explain code to someone, but you don't want that code to be executed, just put it inside of a Markdown cell. Links, very easy. There's a couple of links. You can see I've got this as a link, and if I hover over that, it's like a web page, and there's a link. There's a link, but it's the actual URL. There I've got the URL, but it's in italics. There I've got just the link itself, but it's bold. There's the URL, but it's bold. And there's the link, but it's italic. And here is an email. If I click on this, it's not going to take me to a website. It's going to open my email app, the default email app on my computer. So let's have a look at all of these. First of all, you see all the minus symbols. So this is an unordered list. And this is how I would go about that. So if I want the word, I put the word inside of square brackets directly following by parentheses. Inside of the parentheses, I put the URL. If I just want that URL to be a link directly, I put it inside of, which looks like an HTML tag, and you just put the URL right inside of there. If I precede that with a star symbol, end with a star symbol, that's going to be italic. If I do the word itself, I can put, do italics or bold or strike through, whatever I want to render that word. But then there's the URL. I can do the same thing just by using this as a tag, the URL, putting the 2-star symbol, that's going to be bold. And here I've got italic. You can do whatever you want, but this is how I do the email. This is the important one. There's an A tag with a closing A tag, and then whatever I want to appear in that link is right there, the words. And this is how I would do it. It is href equals, and then in quotation marks, mail to, then the email address. So you can pause there, try and copy it, and see if that works for you. So that'll open your email client, whereas these will be links that go to whatever you set it to be. It can be to other documents, it can be to web pages. The emojis don't really work inside of this version of Visual Studio Code, the version of Jupyter Notebooks in Visual Studio Code. So there's my emoji, and I'm saying I'm happy. And what I had to do is just hit this is a Mac, so I'm just going to hit the function key, and that brings up this, how to search for your emojis, and, you just select the one that you want. In other versions of Jupyter Notebooks, you would do something like this. You'd say joy is the name of this emoji, I think, and closing colon, and that will actually render that emoji for you. It doesn't work in Jupyter Notebooks and Visual Studio Code. You just have to use the emoji from directly from your computer. Subscript and superscript. The tilde symbol is going to give me the subscript. So I've got the chemical symbol there for water. So it's H2O. And so the subscript is preceded by and followed by the tilde symbols. So the 2 is going to be a subscript. So that's quite easy to do. And then for the superscript, just as easy, that's going to be the caret symbols. That's Shift 6 on my keyboard. And so you can see the 20th of the month. So if I double click on that, I've just put the TH enclosed in these caret symbols. So that works very, very well. Footnotes, there's a bunch of ways you can do footnotes. You can see all the footnotes here. There is the one. Now, if this was many, many, many lines of text, the footnote might be off of the screen. So if I clicked on that, it'll take me to the footnote. And if I click on this, it'll take me back to the footnote, to this link here. I've got multiple lines here in my footnote. And here I've got one footnote, 2 footnotes, and they've got the 1 and 2 there. Once again, if I have multiple lines of text cells, and so the footnote might be, I had to scroll down. It won't be visible on the screen unless I scroll down. Those the little links will take you to the footnote, and these links will take you back. So let's have a look at these. So this is a statement, and all I'm doing, I'm putting inside of square brackets caret 1, and that doesn't matter. That 1 doesn't matter at all. I can put anything there, and let's actually do that. I'm going to say anything. Now, as long as I put anything here as well. And that's still going to work, and it's going to start at the number 1. Here's the multi-line, how I would do that. See, this time I've used note, and as long as I have note there, colon space, I just start typing. And then the next lines, as long as I have blank space there, I can just keep on adding lines, and that's going to nicely order those lines for me. If I had more than one footnote I wanted to do, as long as I just name these things differently. So as long as that 1 corresponds to that 1, no matter what I called it, and this 2 corresponds with that. And then you're going to get these nice footnotes. The final thing I want to show you is horizontal rules, and you've got 3 different ones that you can do there. 3 star symbols, 3 minus symbols, or a couple of underscores. And that's how you would do it. Let's open these up, and I've just got the 3 star symbols there, and I get a horizontal rule. If I put 3 little minus, I've got those. The same thing. And if I put a couple of underscores, I get the same thing. And there you go, short and sweet. So I hope you paused the video and played with some of these, but look at all the things that you can do in the Markdown cell. As I say, you can think of it as a little like word editor or document editor, and you can really make your notebooks stand out and do all these kind of things. Just, I think, if you use these in the right way, your research documents or whatever you use your Jupyter notebooks for can look quite professional. So give it a go.